Mrs. Eichholz,
Here.
Dr. Hooker,
Here.
Mrs. Johnston, Mrs. Lewis,
Here.
Mrs. Singh.
Here.
I would entertain a motion to adopt the regular meeting agenda as well as the addendum.
So moved. Second.
You can do a voice vote for that.
Aye.
I would entertain a motion to go into an executive session, and if whoever's going to make that motion, please read the actual wording.
I move we go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.21G5. Matters required to be kept confidential by state statute, Ohio Revised Code, Section 2317.02, attorney-client privileged communications, in order to obtain legal advice. Second.
Mrs. Eichholz,
Aye.
Mrs. Singh,
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis. Aye. Dr. Hooker.
Aye. United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Konecki, would you like to do recognitions, correspondence, and announcements?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hooker. Welcome, everybody. Just a couple of announcements this evening before we get into our reports. First of all, Indian Hill High School wants to congratulate our 4 students who placed in the annual Forest Airs Vocal Music Scholarships. Claire Hardick, Luis Vega Torres won 2 of the 4 $500 scholarships, and Joseph Kane and Preston Marks were runner-up. Congratulations to all 4 of those students. Also, Indian Hill High School junior Elsa Zhao completed an independent research project on cardiovascular medical devices under the mentorship of Dr. Sujata K. Bhatia, a professor at Harvard and the University of Delaware. Zhao presented her findings at the Biomedical Engineering Society Annual National Conference held in Orlando recently. Congratulations to Elsa. Going to turn it over now to Mr. Nichols for a short operations update.
Thank you. We do have just a few updates about projects going on. Of course, the one that most are focused on is our construction project going on. And if you have not noticed, the building is gone. We've completely demolished the physical building, so it was time. So that is gone, and what you'll notice, and if you're not watching, you can certainly go to our website, and there's not much to look at right now, but there will be. So go to our website, and you'll be able to see that action happening on our live camera, but they will start to get rid of the concrete pad here over the next month, and in talking to them, you actually will never see the site not working over the winter. Even though it'll be cold, they'll still be grading and getting ready to be able to pour concrete in February. So we have a lot going on. And then over winter break, you'll notice that the awning to the auditorium here will go away as part of the demolition. That's part of the package. And the sidewalk will rebuild some entrances to be able to still accommodate all of the events that we have in here. So it won't look as nice as it does now, but when we get done, it will look beautiful. So we'll be doing that over winter break. And then you might have noticed we just installed a new concrete pad that goes into the middle school gym, which is now fully operational. Our rec programs are using, as well as our school programs, and we're holding events back over there in the middle school gym. So we're in the process of putting up some signage to help make sure everybody knows where to go when they get over there, and we'll add some lighting as well for safety. And then a design update is that our architect MSA has just done a great job soliciting feedback from everyone. They have been working with students, staff, administration, our operations team here from the board. They've met with community members, the rec commission, our rangers, our fire department, representatives from the village. We've had security experts in reviewing it, technology experts, and Hamilton County zoning is involved with it. So, and I think the best part of their process is it's not a one-time thing. It's something where they get that feedback and then they go back and they get additional feedback and they hear what people think of the modifications they're making. So I really appreciate that MSA has got a constant process going on, and that continues. And we're still designing different buildings and different projects. And then in December, you'll hear a little bit of a larger update from our construction team. Skanska, MSA will be here, and they'll be providing even a more detailed update on the project. And then finally, just an operations update not related to the building project is that we met with the village earlier this week, and we added the village zones lighting here. We're always trying to be good neighbors, and how many nights we turn the lights on. Of course, that's just part of our community, and so they approve a certain number, and they approve the number of events we've been hosting, and so we're happy with that. So that is our operations update.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Next up, we'd like to hear about our strategic plan update, and Dr. Stewart, I will put the slide presentation up here for you, and go from there.
Great. Well, I'm really excited to tell you that we have continued to make progress. If there is a theme for what was happening during mid-October to early November, it was we were doing a little bit of talking and a whole lot of listening. So I'm really thrilled with all the different stakeholders who were able to be part of this process. As you know, we've been working with a group of people that were titled the steering committee, and we wanted to make sure that we received a lot of other feedback as well. So the next group that started to engage in this process was a group called the advisors, and we held 4 different meetings. The advisors included different stakeholders and also included some students. And I just want to acknowledge how grateful I am to work at this school district. That's different than almost every place else. I don't know if there's a time that you can ask people to dedicate hours of their time after school and have 100% participation, but that's what happened with us. Every single person who said, yes, I'll be part of that, came and was thoroughly involved in the conversation, and you just leave that meeting thrilled and excited about all of the great ideas that are coming. I also want to share another group that we did a lot of listening was our students. So I want to give a special shout out to our innovation coaches who cleared their schedules and gathered 160 students in small groups to hear their impressions of how school was going. This started in kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. And our students' voices really are some of the most important voices through this process. And they shared a lot of important information with us. What's really exciting is what they shared with us is really aligning to what the adults are saying as well, which is a really nice indication that we're moving in the right direction. We are still taking some survey results, especially in the area of our recent alumni. We're looking at students who've graduated in the last 6 years. We think they have really valuable information. And I want to thank the members of the Board of Education as well as some of our community members who were instrumental of getting that survey information out to family and friends to say, share with us what you're thinking. And the number of responses has doubled in the last couple of weeks. So we're going to continue to keep that open and keep a watch on what our recent alumni are saying. So what's happening next? We believe it's important to continue to seek feedback, and we have another stakeholder group that will be meeting. So this week and Monday of next week, we'll be meeting with the advisors again to gather more information. And then after we return from Thanksgiving, we'll be meeting with another group called the Focus Group, and our consultants from Education Elements will be sharing all the information gathered from the previous groups and seeing how aligned that sounds to the people who are part of that focus group. So far, it's been a really amazing experience with a lot of alignment, and it makes me just feel really excited for the future of the school district and all that we're able to do when we work together as partners.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. Again, you can see the overall timeline here, board members, and for our members of the public, I just want to reiterate something that Dr. Stewart pointed out. The level of engagement from our community members, from students to parents, has been really inspirational. And we set out at the beginning of all of this to plan and align everything we do to build a student-centered culture. And having students at the center of the voice of these conversations has been really empowering, not only for our students, but I think for their parents and the other stakeholders coming to these meetings. And to Nancy and Nikki for their time with the steering committee, we are getting some amazing input and feedback that the steering committee is going to use to help draft a wonderful plan for you next month. Thank you, Dr. Stewart. Next up, and I will turn this over to Mr. Davis, is our 5-year forecast presentation.
And board, if you don't want to turn around for this, there's actually a way to view it on your computer screens. It's embedded, if you go down to the treasurer's report, it's embedded under approve the 5-year forecast. You'll see a link that says presentation. And I will actually tell you when to change slides so you know when to change slides. I will be the beeper for you. So good evening and welcome to the November 2021 5-year forecast presentation. In November of 2020, when we discussed the district's 5-year forecast, ours was a fiscal story of significant unknowns due to the ongoing pandemic, the economy, and with our local revenue. Since that time, the picture has stabilized on all fronts, most specifically the approval of the 5.43 combined May 4, 2021 operating bond levy. This presentation will look at that historical vote, along with other significant contributing factors to our district's fiscal well-being, I would like to begin by highlighting three major themes of our financial forecast. Has the board found it in my presentation, or the presentation in the... Okay. So if we're ready, you want to change and go to the second slide. The first theme that I spoke of involves the positive growth of the district's property valuation. Change slide. The good news from the valuation is that the property values in the Indian Hill School District grew by 8.4% for tax year 2020. This growth means the district has its highest valuation ever, surpassing tax year 2009. You can see on the graph that it's been a steady climb back to pre-recession values. Property values throughout Hamilton County and the state of Ohio continued to climb. The next district revaluation will be in tax year 2023. So that will be the next year we see a significant growth or decrease. My anticipation will be significant growth, but that will be the next time we see it. We'll discuss the effects of the increase in property values later in the presentation. Change slide. The second major theme of the November forecast is the tentative agreement reached between the Indian Hill Educators Professional Organization and the Board of Education. This agreement will plot the course for salaries and benefits for the school years 2023, 2024, and 2025. Change slide. The third major theme of the forecast is when the taxpayers of Indian Hill School District voted on May 4th to levy a combined operating current expense property tax and a $77 million facilities bond project. The current expense levy will yield the district an additional $3.3 million annually in revenue through property taxes. The $77 million facilities project will allow the district to replace the middle school, which was nearing 60 years old at the time of its demolition. The project will also allow the district to upgrade the security at the other three buildings, as well as infuse cash for infrastructure updates that had been eating into the general fund's cash reserve. Change slide. Overall, the health of the district remains strong. In addition to the rise in property values that we discussed earlier, the enrollment of the district continues to grow, climbing to the highest total since 2009. Change slide. Revenue sources for school districts in Ohio include local, state, and federal funds. Federal funds are passed through the Ohio Department of Education. Federal funds are used to supplement programming or for specific capital projects. In most years, Indian Hill receives less than 2% of its overall revenue from federal programs. When I refer to state funds, I am specifically looking at the amount the district receives from the state's education funding mechanism, generally known as its foundation payment. In most years, Indian Hill receives less than 4% of its total revenue from this source. Change slide. As you can see, this leaves a significant amount of the remaining revenue to local sources. These sources include property taxes and a TIF agreement with Sycamore Township that accounts for a significant portion of IH's annual budget. It is local sources that make up most of the district's general fund, which is the fund studied when looking at the 5-year forecast. Change slide. Earlier in the presentation, we discussed the increase of the 8.4% in property valuation, which is great for homeowners, but this does not mean an 8.4 increase in revenue for the district. There is a mechanism in place known as House Bill 920 that does not allow school district revenue to increase uniformly with property market values. Revenue is allowed to grow for the unvoted inside millage as well as new construction, explaining the small year-over-year increase when looking at years 2020 and 2021. The May 4th levy will begin collecting revenue in fiscal year 2022 and will collect a full year's revenue beginning in fiscal year 2023. The five-year collection period will mean that the levy can be reevaluated in 5 years. This expiration date, however, falls outside of the current forecast. So as you look at the bars on that forecast, I believe 2026 will be the last year it will be fully collected before we have to go and either not renew the levy or ask the voters to renew it at that time. Change slide, or I'm sorry. The voted levy affects the other revenues line as well. The most significant portion of this line item consists of the Sycamore Township TIF. There are 9 properties in the Kenwood area that comprise this agreement. These properties are exempt from paying property tax, but the agreement with Sycamore Township reimburses the district 100% of those resources. Revenues will increase from the TIF as they are required to reimburse the new voted levy amount. Now you may change slide. As expenditures are examined, you can see from the bar chart that inflation moves expenses higher as we extend the forecast. The two most significant expenditures are salaries and benefits. This represents the human resources portion of our expenses. These are the teachers and educational aides who deliver lessons to our students, our bus drivers and mechanics who get them to and from school each day, and the administration and other support staff that help facilitate every day we're in school. Change slide. These graphs show the percentage increase in these expenses over time. Fiscal year 2021 saw a decrease in salaries. Fiscal year 2023 includes a one-time stipend paid to certified staff before leveling out over the final 3 years of the forecast. The large decrease in benefits in 2021 represents a large rebate from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation that is not anticipated in future years. Retirement benefits will continue to rise as salaries increase. Change slide. However, the biggest driver of the benefits expenditure is health insurance. I have estimated between 8 and 9% increases in health care for the future years of the forecast. However, the Swoosh Consortium continues to operate well below average renewals compared to the industry benchmarks. Calendar year 2022 will only see a 3.9 increase, which we're very excited to get such a low increase. Change slide. The $77 million construction project will not be directly reflected in the 5-year forecast, as its proceeds will not be put into the general fund. However, its indirect reflection will be seen in reductions to the purchase services and capital outlay lines. For years, the district's general fund has been funding much-needed repairs and remodels. However, the construction project will account for repairs to roofs and mechanical items throughout the district. Constant service and repairs made to the middle school will no longer be a burden on the district's general fund, as well as relief from replacing furniture, carpet, and mechanical items that need to be replaced in a 10 to 15-year cycle. Capital outlays in the forecast will be for items such as school buses and technology. Change slide. To conclude the presentation, revenue is expected to be greater than expenses for each of the years in the forecast. This is in stark contrast to last November's forecast, when the projections were a deficit in each of the 5 years. This is because the district obtained a new revenue source for the first time in many years. But we need to remember that the $3.3 million in new revenue will be near flat growth over time, while expenses will continue to increase with inflation. Therefore, the surplus is estimated to decrease in size over time. Change slide. I want to thank the Board of Education for giving me the opportunity to present the November 2021 forecast, and I can say that 2022 will be another amazing year for the district. Thank you.
from the board, we really appreciate your hard work and the excellent job you do of being very transparent about where the money comes from and where the money goes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mick. If we could move on to the superintendent's report now, Dr. Hooker. First up this evening under 7A is the second reading of the school calendar. I sent some information. I'd just like to thank Jim Nichols and Amy Campa, and we had a committee of staff who worked on this. We took a lot of feedback over the last month. There are 3 short adjustments that were made. First, on this second reading, the winter break would begin on 12/16. That was a move up from the previous date that was listed. And 10/6 now becomes a student day. That was originally a professional learning day. And 11/21 and 11/22 will now be staff development work days, no student days that week. That was based on all the feedback we received with the models that were presented. And so we will seek an approval of that this evening as a part of my report.
When we discussed that before, where did you get the days for 21 and 22?
Where did we get these days? Based on the feedback, in terms of where we started the winter break, for example, it was just a matter of how those days fell on the calendar and which week we would normally start the break. So we made an adjustment to kind of adjust back to a traditional starting time of that December break. The professional learning day that is now a student day on 10/6, I think was a trade-off for how we're flexing our professional learning on the other days, just shifting around which days we will offer professional learning versus student learning. Really try to make the semesters balance a little more and make our professional learning calendar work better for everybody.
And I appreciate the teachers' input into this and being flexible. It was very good.
Thank you. Letter B is an approval of some overnight field trips, future field trips. Letter C includes our personnel actions. There are some approval of some classified substitutes, one change of contract, an approval of some non-certified contract salaries, approvals of supplementals and personal service contracts, retirements and resignations, and one tuition reimbursement. If there are no questions, sorry, we also have an addendum. Sorry, addendum item. Thank you once again. Addendum item D. There are some additional approval for some supplemental service contracts and some of our staff planning. And then there is a new resolution for declaring an impracticability of transportation and offering a payment.
Kirk, you said D. I think you meant C.
C, yes, sorry, C, we added items 4, F through I, and then there is one new item also, letter D, which is that transportation resolution. So I would be looking, Dr. Hooker, to entertain a motion for number 7, items A through D at this time.
I move we approve item 7, A through D.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnston? Mrs. Lewis? Mrs. Singh?
Aye.
Dr. Hooker?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis, would you like to do your report?
I would certainly welcome the opportunity to do my report this evening. Item A is to approve the minutes of the October 19th, 2021 regular meeting. And if I could, I would like to stop there and ask if the board will approve item A, since we had a board member who was unable to attend October's meeting.
I would entertain a motion to approve item A of the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye.
Mrs. Singh?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnston? Mrs. Lewis? Dr. Hooker?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on, I would like to approve the financial reports for the month ending October 31, 2021. Approve the establishment of one student activity account, that's a field hockey camp. Item D is to approve one following contract for 2021-2022 school year for preferred home healthcare, healthcare staffing agreement for school services. This is a contract as needed. Item E is to approve 2 construction change orders for Skanska on GMP 1 Cincinnati Bell Quasi Box, $3,677.20. And the second one is a water backfeed, $47,766.66. That was one that they found once they started demolition that they needed to get approved in order to allow us to get water over to the gym and make sure that our middle school gym is functionable. Item F is item F and G are items that we approve each year in November. The first is a resolution requesting the county auditor to make advance payment of our taxes. That just gives me the ability to ask the county auditor to send us over the tax payments as they receive them. Item G is the authorization to file a modified tax budget for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Item H is to approve the 5-year forecast as it was presented. Item I is the acceptance of 2 donations. One's for the IH boosters for the high school. It's for their senior trip, donation of $2,000. And the second is from the foundation. If you remember last month, they donated on behalf of some IH wrestling alumni. There was some more money that came in from that group that completes the graphics and finishings for the new wrestling room, $1,900. As always, we appreciate all who donate to the school, and it's with their kindness and that benefits the district in ways that I can't possibly repay. So if there's any questions, I would entertain those. If not, I would ask that my report be approved, items B through I.
Motion to that effect?
I move that we approve items B to I.
B through I?
Yes.
I second.
Mrs. Johnston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Singh?
Aye.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye.
Dr. Hooker?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Konecki, you want to talk about the Neola policy updates?
Yep.
And then
They have to do A and B.
they have to approve A.
Yeah.
So there'll be a resolution.
Yeah.
and then you go to B.
Yeah, Dr. Hooker, first I'd like to start with letter A under number 9 tonight. We're looking for a resolution for approval of a special release for Senate Bill 1. This is the substitute teacher flexibility bill. I don't know that it will have a large impact here on our staffing, but important for that flexibility based on the new Senate Bill 1 that was recently passed into law. This allows us to look at the employment status of people with a little more flexibility in terms of licensure.
I would entertain a motion, if someone would like to make one, to accept item A of number 9.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnston?
Aye.
Mrs. Singh?
Aye.
Dr. Hooker?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now continue with those Neola updates.
Item 9, letters B through U, we have 17 updates to Neola policies, and I'm not going to do a report on all 17, but I would ask board members to review those. Again, this is just a first reading, and there are several important updates in terms of language, and we will make sure that you have the red line updates to take a look at.
Mr. Konecki is going to send out to all the board a link to be able to get to those electronically, because printing them all would just be sort of ridiculous. So everybody will be getting that link. So this is only the first reading, and then we can all review them and get back with us.
Thank you.
Other business, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the collective bargaining agreement 7/1/22 to 6/30/25 between the Indian Hill IHEVSD Board of Education and the Indian Hill Educators Professional Organization.
Still move.
Second.
Mrs. Singh?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnston?
Aye.
Dr. Hooker?
Aye. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Amy Campa. I believe she's here and would like to make a few comments. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Since the inception of IHEPO, our groups have benefited from open and honest communication. This is most evident during contract negotiations. I'm proud to be a member of a team that places an emphasis on mutual respect and collaboration to gather information, listen, and respond to the needs of all members of our community. This kind of relationship is one of the many things that makes our district unique. In this season of giving thanks, on behalf of the members of the Indian Hill Educators Professional Organization, I want to express my gratitude to the Board of Education for allowing us to be partners in this process and for accepting the tentative agreement. Together, with our families, support groups, and community, we will continue to work to make the IH Promise a reality for all students within our school district. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've been on the board with you all, and this has just made it such a wonderful place to be. Thank you so much for everything you do, and I think Mrs. Lewis and some others may have some comments they wanted to make.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you and all members of IHEPO. I have enjoyed working with you for a very long time, and with IHEPO, and on behalf of myself and the personnel committee that we do the collective bargaining negotiations, I couldn't have dreamed of a better way to have mutual respect. You know, we did negotiations in a very different way before then, and I am incredibly thankful for what we have here at Indian Hill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say that was my first experience working through the collective bargaining agreement, and it was a pleasure doing business with you all. And I know that we are unique in the relationship that we have with our teachers. And I also know that on behalf of our taxpayers, our students, our community, that you all will deliver and then some on everything that is always expected of you, and you go so far beyond what is expected that I don't even need to say it. But really, really appreciate everything that you all do, the safe environment you provide for our children, the excellent education, and the collaboration that's available at all levels in this district. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Konecki, could you give us a presentation on COVID-19, please, where we are as a district and where the facts are falling right now?
Yes, just wanted to say briefly, because she was behind my back and I couldn't see her there. Amy, thank you on behalf of Mick and myself for all that you do. We appreciate it. IHEPO is such a special organization. I've been doing this for 27 years now, and I can honestly say this is the type of unique relationship that should be present in all public school districts for administrators, board members, and teachers to be able to work together and collaborate in the way we do. It's very special, and that's because of the hard work of our teacher leaders. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to COVID operations. So, thank you, Eric. Again, our priority, as we've stated, going back now for really over a year and a half, is in-person, in-school learning. And we're going to continue to mitigate likelihood of spread with our cleaning and safety protocols. We're going to continue to monitor local, regional, state, national data and input, especially those from our area health partners and government officials, to make informed decisions. We're going to continue to offer in-person learning as our priority. And we're going to continue to offer all of our annual school calendar of activities this year as planned. We have not had to cancel anything, by the way, this year so far. That's unique amongst many schools in the state of Ohio. We have a face covering policy that's still in place, as you know, which we review when we get together, as in this evening as well. And there is still a federal transportation order required for all passengers on public transit through January of 2022. We don't have any updated information about whether that will be amended at this time. We've had a bi-weekly kind of review period for masks. We send the board weekly reports, as you all know, and we have updated our COVID reporting web resources for people who would like to dig a little deeper with daily updates on our website. So some just updates to general vaccine data. This is staff, faculty vaccine data. Again, hasn't changed much. We haven't done another major survey since last month. We've had a couple of numbers adjustments in terms of other areas, but this is pretty static. Student data, this is a new table, as you notice. This is prior to our first vaccine clinic that was offered yesterday afternoon through our partners at Hamilton County Public Health. So these are numbers that our parents were willing to share with us with a short survey we put out. We just did a data pull yesterday afternoon to get a sense of where we are for grades 1 through 7. And I will point out and would like to celebrate our grade 7 parents continue to share a tremendous amount of information. The response percentage is very high. Almost the entire cohort has shared their information with us, and you can see that again over 70% of that grade level is vaccinated, and now they are all 12 years old and have the availability of a vaccine. So we're really happy with that progress. And again, I just want to say as we're going through this data, we really appreciate our parents sharing this data with us. We can't collect this data in any other way. And we know that it's also not 100% accurate, but if we didn't have this data, it would really make decision-making even harder. So we appreciate the response. Grades 8 through 12, there have been some changes. Again, the number of students and parents who've responded to this, the number of students vaccinated has gone up overall. And as you know, we went mask option last month for this group. And since then, we've continued to see an increase in vaccinations. So that's also really good news, again, and our local data continues to be very low when it comes to cases in quarantine at the high school, specifically almost non-existent. Here is some caseload data. You can see, again, what I did is I kept the totals accruing at the end, the last column, but I'm shifting here so you can see the months of October and November. If people would like to see older reports, they can go back and look at those. But you can see how our cases have progressed. Again, fairly low numbers overall, and by building, you can see those totals. Quarantine data. Next, and again, you can see the cumulative totals is still under 7% total student population, staff population combined to this point. And those numbers have remained low. And I would just point out that since 11/1, ODH changed the guidelines on quarantine as well. So it makes sense that these numbers will continue to be low moving forward if people do the mask to stay or test to play around activities and events moving forward, whether they're indoors or outdoors. And then if you are not a part of an in-school activity or event, you have to now follow the regular ODH guidelines and protocols. So I think it's important. Some people have been confused during the last month. The test to play is only for in-school sponsored activities. For example, our grades 7 through 12 sports teams or performing arts groups. Youth sports falls under regular ODH guidelines, and that has caused a little confusion for some parents. I'm sorry? They are to follow regular quarantine guidelines, and they can only shorten the duration of their quarantine with testing or with support doctors, excuse. So again, they're supposed to do the full quarantine or a reduced duration with a negative test over 7 days so that they can return after 8 days. And that's a self-reporting mechanism for any other industry outside of schools, including youth organizations, camps, things like that.
So just to understand, if a child is playing outside of school in a youth sport like recreation, soccer or whatever, and they come in contact, they're considered close contact, they have to quarantine for 14 days in school?
Their recommendation is to self-report and quarantine and to follow the original 14-day quarantine unless they reduce that duration with negative testing. And again, after 7 days, they could return to whatever activity they had. And, that's their requirement to follow those ODH protocols. And I think, again, that's created a little confusion over the last month for people involved in activities around school communities that aren't directly sponsored by the school.
But if they have an exposure in a youth activity for in school, for them to come in school, the quarantine rules that ODH has put out for,
Would apply to them here.
Yes.
To mask to stay or test to play.
right, but not when they have to go to soccer.
Yeah.
Understood. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Federal COVID vaccination rates, again, this comes from the CDC website. These are updated each month, and we look at these weekly. As you all know, the numbers of federal fully vaccinated 18 and over in the country continues to climb. It's nearing 70%, which is a federal benchmark that was kind of set and announced a year ago. Looking at 78.5% of adults 18 and over have at least a dose of a vaccine now across, this is the country. And again, 66.2% of children 12 and over are fully vaccinated. That's great news for those who choose that opportunity. And 77% of children have at least one dose. And of course, we will now be able to add the 5 to 11 category to this moving forward. Ohio's vaccination rate, again, over 60% of those 12 and over are fully vaccinated. That number continues to grow. Hamilton County numbers are a little bit lower. That positivity rate actually should be 7%, not 9%. I apologize. That has changed. And again, you will start to see that number fluctuate, right, every week or 2 weeks based on what's going on. I would expect it actually to pop back up a little bit over 7%, back towards 9%, the next report. But as it stands from last week, it was 7%. We've looked at some of these decision factors before, and again, this is just as a review. This is how we arrived at the decision for the 8 through 12 to go mask optional with some of these factors that we've been watching, knowing that we had a large number of people who had a vaccine percent that was climbing, knowing that we had low quarantines, low caseload numbers, and now starting to examine some of those things. You should start to see some CDC, ODH, HCPH language change, and what we've been told by our partners at ODH now is when you see that positivity rate go below 7%, that should start to trigger some language changes from ODH and HCPH in the future in terms of moving from a strong recommendation for indoor masking to more flexibility. So that's why I wanted to highlight that 7% number as well, just so we all know. There was also a question last month about that R rate and what Cincinnati Health Collaborative and Tri-Health talk about. When cases fall below 3 per thousand, or then you start to see relaxation of the language from some of our local hospital organizations like Tri-Health, who's our partner. And when you start to see that R number at or below 1.0, then you will start to see some relaxing of guidelines or language. And so the R number has fluctuated below 1 over the last month to 6 weeks. It's 1.11, I believe, right now. And the cases per thousand had been going down. It's kind of plateaued again. So now we'll see whether that changes. But again, those are the things we've been talking about that are tied to language, just so you're aware that we got a little more clarification on some of that. Again, we're continuing to look at our local caseload trends and data, positivity in the region, and hospitalizations. Overall, hospitalizations are still fueled by 50 to 70-year-olds. The numbers of children in the hospitals is not the largest percentage or group, and that goes back now 6 weeks in terms of data. Some of the weekly numbers for hospitalization have changed. They were decreasing. Now they're not decreasing again, and so we continue to watch that weekly. As you all know, the vaccines are now approved for children 5 to 11. There is an oral pill for Pfizer that's been asked for approval. That would be a pill that would be administered for adults only, I believe, so I don't know that that will have any impact on children right now. And we continue to see state legislation debates. Actually, just today, I'll need to give the board an update. There were some House actions in the Ohio legislature around vaccine mandates, some language that was debated and voted on, so I will give you an update as soon as I get that. And we continue to get health official updates and governing body updates every week. We know that we can change our plans as we move forward. We've done that several times. We're going to continue to contact trace and do our quarantine work per the ODH order. We have had several parents ask questions about this, and I just want to reiterate, we're following a Class A reporting order every time we issue a press release about a new case. This is not by district choice. This is an order which has the effect of law that we must follow. And we know that some people do not like that. I've had some people ask about being removed from our district email list because of this. I just would caution against that because we don't want our parents to miss out on any other information that goes out on our district email list. And again, I just want to reiterate, we're following a law. We continue to work with our partners, MindPeace, Cincinnati Children's, 1 and 5. Our character education program is being implemented. Again, if there are people who need help or resources, we want our students and parents to reach out. We can connect them to partners. And that has been very successful this year. Another question has come up about pickup patrol. Again, we're going to continue and ask that the board continue to encourage the use of pickup patrol for the self-reporting of daily symptoms through the first few weeks of December until at least our next board meeting. We think we could evaluate that again in December, but right now, because again, most of our primary and elementary students are going through a routine daily right now that really helps us collect information, we'd like to be able to continue to do that at least through the next few weeks. And then we'd like to continue to review this data with you, of course, weekly, and think about some of the decision making around our 7th grade group that I pointed out with the data, and then also talking about how we may want to approach the K-6 group now that we're seeing some data. So that's the end of the report, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Could you possibly comment on what it's been like for the 8th to 12th graders with not wearing masks? Have you seen a change in their attitude and their performance?
Yeah, I think there's no question, Elizabeth. There has been a huge climate impact, allowing the students and staff who choose to go mask optional. There has been a sense of, I think, joy and renewed energy, enthusiasm I have seen in adolescents in the last month that I think is undeniable. And why wouldn't it be? They've done everything we've asked them to do for the last, 2 years and continue to be responsible. And at the same time, we've seen a healthy percentage of students and staff who, if they choose to wear masks, that's totally fine. And I think our teachers and students have been really supportive of one another because that's what this community has done. I think it's been very flexible with one another and very supportive in the buildings. Our teachers have done an amazing job, and I think our students have, at the high school, especially the ones I've talked to, think they feel like they've kind of earned this, right? Because they've had low cases and low quarantine and they feel like they've done the right thing. So there's definitely been a climate impact.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth, it's funny you asked that question. I had asked him that same question as we got ready for the board meeting because I think it is important, and he had noted that. If we could wait to do further comments from all the board members and let the public speak at this point, I'd like to invite public commentary if we have any.
Mr. Cox, do we have a list? All right, Dr. Hooker, nobody has signed up.
Well, then that is easy. And so then I'd like to talk about COVID and just let each board member just where they are and what you think. Go ahead. If you could pull that mic a little closer.
So with respect to the 8 through 12, thank you for that information. I do think that that's great news. We have not also, obviously I watch everything you send out to us, and we've not had any spike in cases. We haven't had a spike in quarantines. But that's something that I know that you as administrators look out for. The question I have on 8 through 12 is, as an administration, now I know we had to do this at the elementary school, but as administrators, do you feel like if cases start to rise, and we are seeing a little bit of rise in cases, and it may or may not rise, but do you feel that you have the ability to make adjustments, or do you think, there's been various times, or the slides that you presented tonight, as well as earlier in time, about guardrails that basically permit or, let you guys make a decision by grade level, like all of a sudden there's 10% of our student body or 10% of the you know, whatever class or 10% of our staff in teaching 10th grade now are not here. Are you able to shut down, do you think, or do you think we as a board should put some guardrails on it to give you some guidance so that the community kind of knows where you're going?
Great question, Kim. I think we have some guardrails in place that we used and we've employed throughout the last year and a half, but really came in handy when we had to look at this with the elementary grade levels in early October. So there are a couple of hard factors we would look at for grade level decisions, which is what we've tried to communicate, I think, throughout this school year. We would try to make grade level decisions about operations. And I think moving forward, we could use the same factors, not just for mask requirements, but also for operational situations. And so one would be the total number of grade level staff that are absent, because that directly affects our operations. And we know that when we have over 10% of our staff starting to miss at a grade level, that becomes problematic. Total number of students absent, again, by grade level, when that climbs over 10%, in conjunction with number one, we start to have a larger issue in terms of delivery and efficacy with instruction. And then number three would be the number of COVID cases and what percentage that is. Again, throughout the entire pandemic as a district, we've been under 2% in terms of case numbers, but when you start to see it at a grade level grow, you know, by percentage, we have to watch that. And then, of course, those quarantines are connected to the case numbers usually, and when that quarantine percentage grows, those first four factors, grade level staff absence, in conjunction with students absent based on COVID numbers and quarantine, those are the four hard factors that forced us to move to change operations. I think those same things would be the signals that we would want to use when we had to consider mask wearing in the future. In order to mitigate more problems, right? If we started to see growth in cases or quarantines, and based on the ODH guidelines we have in place, I think those are the four tight factors we would look at. And then there's three others. I can see Dr. Hooker wanted to ask me something. There's three other that I think are also important. Local health orders that would be either revised or new, that would be communicated to us. State health orders that would be revised or new, given to us. And any kind of federal order that we would have to respond to. Those would supersede everything else, right, if we got an order as an effective law. But I think if we're looking at those 7 things, those first 4 factors could be used in combination for local grade level decision making and or building level decision making moving forward. And I think it would trigger a 2-week mask mandate and or a 2-week operational change, because we know it takes that long to mitigate the COVID symptoms. When we are made aware of these cases or these surges in cases moving forward. And again, that would be a suggestion that I think our team has worked on to talk about.
When I think that, and the reason I'm raising the question obviously is when we had the issue at the elementary school, I mean, if they were mask optional, would there have been a point before we reached the point of having to shut down where you as administrators would have recommended, let's go to mask required for this grade level so that we don't have to be out of school for 2 weeks?
Yeah. And I don't think actually, because then everybody was mask required just right now. But at the high school, for example, right now, we would want to add the layer of mask requirement in first, right, before we would move to an operational change. And we think the same factors would apply.
Okay.
That's what I was going to ask you. So I like what you're saying, but our goal is to keep the kids in school. I would like to, you know, if we can keep the mask off the kids and get the kids vaccinated, but I don't want the kids remote learning. Right. So I think that I don't want to tie your hands behind your back, and I don't want to have an emergency board meeting. I think we need to come up with some guardrails, as you've said, that says to you, we now delegate this responsibility to operate on these things. And I think that can you come up with right now that
this is it. I mean, I believe the language of these factors used in combination for local grade level and building level decision making for a 2-week mask mandate and or remote learning option as necessary gives us what we need, and I don't see any of these 7 things changing.
Okay.
I think the question is, what specifically would get you to go from mask optional to mask mandate before you have to consider remote learning? Like an intermediate?
From the masking to remote learning, again, it would have to be a combination of the first 4
No,
items.
well, how would you go from mask optional to mask mandate?
Growth in cases and quarantines would continue, which would tell us that the masks aren't.
But above what? I think that's what we're trying to say. What numbers would you
But that's
use?
what he's
Again,
been saying since August. He's
but what
given
we're
us
saying-
these numbers.
I guess
these
to be
numbers since
clear,
August.
sorry, Nancy. Sorry.
But you've given us these numbers since August.
To be clear, the key for not just the masks, but operating and going remote, it's not just about the illness, it's about the staffing, right? So it could be that adults are sick or children are sick or there's a combination, which is why I'm saying 1 and 4 have to be used in combination, because when staffing goes over 10%, we've got a problem at any grade level anyways. And so we would watch, if we had to go back to a masking situation, I'm certain that our teachers would work with us, and then we would have to monitor beyond the masks, are people still out and absent? You know, because it's not just who's out because of COVID and quarantine, it's who's out in general and total.
Well,
So that's why I think we need to have this flexibility around the combination of these factors. And by the way, if we see another surge in COVID, what we've also seen every time is some type of amended ODH order. So we would probably have to respond to something legal as well, which is why I think that should be in that list.
Very nice. I think we need to hear other comments, and then we can come back for a motion, because I think we have a couple of different potential motions here tonight. So if we don't mind, if we could talk about some other things first, and then we can, because I see very much a desire, just looking to my left and right, to make a motion related to having the superintendent have the power to make these decisions. That'd be great. But what else do we want to talk about COVID tonight also?
You know, nothing necessarily new and different, except that, first, I'm thrilled about the 8 to 12 results, and thrilled for the kids, and thrilled that we're not seeing any spike. I think it's time to really seriously consider the 7th grade, because we would be using the same rationale now for them as we used as rationale a month ago for the high school kids. So that's first thing. But I also think that because since we met last, the quarantine mandates have changed for everyone. I think we need to really seriously consider K through 6 at this time as well, because our PSES cases are extremely low. And we're already talking about, you know, some changes after Thanksgiving for 7th grade, in theory anyway. Or at least I hope that's what we're talking about tonight. So I'd like to consider everything K through 12 mask optional at this point, based on the data that we have. And if we're saying that we're going to let the superintendent use those guardrails, then we're well within those guardrails for mask optional. And remember, this is not no masks, this is mask optional. So it's just my perspective.
I appreciate that, and thank you. We'll come back to making motions. Ms. Singh, what would you like to mention?
So I think we already have a plan in play that how we are going to handle it if we see any surge or anything. So we already have those guardrails, which is a very good thing. I think grade 7th, most of the students are eligible for vaccine, and 70% plus kids are already vaccinated. So I feel comfortable moving them to mask optional, to give them that mask optional option. For K to 6, I think vaccines have just come out, and kids are taking advantage of it, but still they need some time to get fully vaccinated. And so I think we should wait a little bit, give them maybe till the next December meeting, that much of time, so that, you know, every kid has the opportunity to go out and get vaccinated, and parents will have time till then, and after that we can go mask optional. because now everyone has the option of getting a vaccine.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Johnston?
I actually was not done. I had only.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I
all right. I was
apologize.
just asking that one question.
ahead.
As it relates to 8 through 12, I never got to talk about anything other than that. But
Please do.
But I agree. I think that the 7th grade data is looking very good. I mean, we're over 70%, which is great. I think that one of the things that if we decide as a board tonight to move to mask optional at the 7th grade level, I would want to give enough time. So in other words, I think making a decision for the next day would not be a good plan. I think that we might need some, whether it's after a holiday break or a Monday of a week or something, just to give sufficient notice to families, et cetera. On the K to 6, it's great that they're eligible for vaccines. I'm thrilled about the vaccination clinics. Thank you, Kirk, for really working with our tri-state partners and not only getting the first set of clinics, but then getting additional clinics. And I'm sure you'll continue to work on getting clinics. But I don't think we're there yet to be able to take off the mask yet. But I think that where we ought to be driving towards is in the very near future, when everybody will be eligible and will be able to be vaccinated for both shots. Maybe that is the end of the holiday break, the end of the Christmas break, rather than, doing something, just before Christmas break. But I don't know, I haven't really given thought to the timing of it, but it's just, those are kind of my thoughts.
No, thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Mrs. Johnston.
Thank you. I think we all agree that when we started out in August, our discussion revolved around watching local data and making decisions as they present themselves to us. And I think it's wonderful that we actually have seen a climate change in grades 8 to 12. And I look at the data for the kindergarten to grade 7, and the data has been very low, and there has been no increase, and the quarantine levels have been extremely low. And I think it's extremely important for these young children to be able to see their teachers. I think we all agree we agree that they need to be able to, it's almost more important for them than the high schoolers not to have a mask. And Madeira has gone to mask optional. A lot of the districts have gone to mask optional. We're not really at the cutting edge of this idea. And I think with the guardrails in place, I don't see a reason not to move ahead to have it mask optional from kindergarten all the way to grade 12. I think it's important for the community, it's more important for the children, and I think this administration has demonstrated time and time again since this COVID started that they are on top of the situation, they're able to swiftly change direction, and I have to say that with the guardrails in place and they can anticipate the movement, we can go back to mask mandates and proceed in a safe way.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Just to add a couple of things. Number one, I'm very happy with the progress we've made with vaccinations, but I can't overemphasize the importance. I was just looking on my phone, data from Wisconsin that just came out, and we've heard this a little bit, but I just want to say it again. Fully vaccinated people were 5 times less likely to be infected, 11 times less likely to need a hospital bed, and 15 times less likely to die. Everybody in this community needs to get a vaccine. Please get a vaccine. This is the most studied vaccine of any vaccine in the history of vaccines. It was studied in more people before it was released. It is safe. It has less complications than polio vaccine, and thank God our grandparents took the polio vaccine and wiped out polio. I'd like to wipe out COVID. So I really need to emphasize, let's not be happy with 70%. We need 97%, okay? We really need to get this vaccination rate up. I appreciate all the comments. As far as the 7th grade, I kind of agree with what's been said already. As far as K through 6, I think we just haven't had enough time for the vaccines to take effect yet. I think we need to the science says give them a few more weeks to be vaccinated before we do it. I totally gather why, I mean, the 7th graders are basically effectively in the high school for a huge part of their day, and so it just seems to make sense for that group of people. But anyway, so if I could...
Could I just add just a couple more pieces of information before you all make your decisions?
Please.
So I think it's really important that K through 6 data, just to frame it, right? That was data collected before our clinics, and we know that we've got over 250 students signed up for our clinics that will go through December 14, because there were 4 dates set up, and they'll go through 2 rounds of shots this month and next month. And then we all know how that works, right? Because we went through it last April. And then a couple of other things. You know, we have tried to promote this idea of a mask-friendly environment to everybody. That's not going to change no matter what happens in the future. I just want to reiterate that to anybody who watches the meeting or is listening. Talking about mask option or removing masks does not mean we will not encourage or support anybody who would wear a mask in the future, no matter what grade level or staff or visitors. And then again, we've heard over and over again, right? Our staff has been very good about strategic masking in classrooms or accommodation situations where we need to work on those things. And we've done that. So those are just things I think we should frame with this whole conversation moving forward. We know that you all have seen since the last board meeting ODH's guidelines change. They will continue to probably evolve and change. They give us a little bit of a signal. And then, of course, that vaccination becoming available now is something. Those have all changed in the last 4 weeks. So I just think it's important to keep all that in mind.
Thank you. I think it's important that you point out that with the discussion of mask optional, we still support mask wearing, whoever wants it or needs it or whatever. It isn't to eliminate masking, it's just, as the word says, it's optional.
All right, if it's okay with the board, I'd like to entertain a motion to separate some things out. Do the 7th grade first, please. Could I entertain a motion to have the 7th?
You technically don't need a motion on the 7th grade. It would just expire after this meeting, so we could just articulate that.
Okay.
And I think to Kim's point, if that is something the board members are interested in, last time, if you remember last month, we made a very quick announcement. I would suggest we would communicate this out, since it's Thursday night, that a Monday change would be acceptable. That would give people
I think we need a motion, though, because our old motion expires tonight, is my only concern.
If you plan to do a mask mandate for any grade level, that's who you need to include in the resolution.
Okay.
Resolution will expire K through 7 as of this evening.
Okay.
So, you know, we can make the announcement that that would start Monday or whatever we want to do, but the resolution needs to include who's going to be a part of the mask mandate.
That's fine. So as long as, I mean, y'all have to keep me straight here. I just would have thought you had to say something to allow it to go till Monday.
I think to your point, though, communicating for a change.
So I agree with Kim.
Monday makes
100%.
sense.
The other question I have for you, with respect to 7 through 12, if we do not do a mask mandate for 7, and also with respect to 8 through 12, where there is mask optional now, do we need a resolution to give you the guardrails? That's what I'm...
Yeah, I think they do.
That's your privy.
Okay. And from my perspective, I want to give you the public guidelines, or guideposts, but in addition, I want to make sure that you have the flexibility to make that change without having to call an emergency board meeting.
Absolutely.
And that's really my concern about where we were with 8 through 12 and where we may be with 7 through 12. So I don't know what the board as a whole feels about that. I just I just feel like you guys need the flexibility that as you see cases rise. And again, I don't know that we need to give you a percent. I mean, you basically have told us that at 10% per grade level, you can't operate. So my guess is the administrators would be talking and say, hey, when we're at 7% of our staff that's out, or 8, again, I don't know what the number is. You're far better at making that decision than me. But if it's, if you're approaching a number where you can't operate, my guess is you might say, hey, we have to go to mass mandatory. But
I mean, if you're looking for the language, I guess I would just suggest that you would accept the 7 grade level factors that were presented, or data factors that were presented as guardrails, and we all have that language that I can then share. We can share publicly. It can be posted to the website. People will have it.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Kim. At least what I think I heard you say was, let's not actually put a specific number on it, because each one of these factors do have to play in, and one factor could be overweighted, and we don't want absolutes. We want to let them have flexibility. Is that what you're saying, I think?
let me try.
Used in combination is the phrase I would really like to have in the resolution.
Let me try this. I would like to make a motion that for grades 7 through 12, that administrators can make decisions regarding COVID operations for mask mandates and or remote operations, and those grade level decisions will be based on a combination of factors, including total number of grade level staff that is absent, total number of students that are absent, number of COVID cases, number of quarantine cases, local health orders, state health orders, and federal orders.
I think you got it.
Yep, I think you do.
Could we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Do we have any further discussion related to that motion?
Can I just ask why you're limiting 7 to 12 for the guardrails?
I mean, I can do 8 through 12 because right now we only have that.
Why
I think, Kim,
Right? I mean, I guess we can do it a different way. I just know that at least for, I mean, we can certainly go backwards.
so we could, if you want to do the vote on the K through 6 first, is that what you're asking for?
No, I'm just wondering why wouldn't the guardrails apply from,
Well, we already have a mask mandate, K through 6.
okay.
And so that's why you...
Yeah, the point of order is, again, anything would expire tonight until you make a resolution for K6. So the order in which you do things is up to you, but, I think you could get this one out of the way and then move on.
Sure.
We can get this out of the way and we can do another motion.
Second, go ahead. I understand.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Who was the second on that motion? I'm sorry. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnston?
Aye.
Mrs. Singh?
Aye.
Dr. Hooker?
Aye. So now I would entertain a motion, if somebody wanted to do it, to continue the mask mandate K through 6 until December the 17th at the end of school.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
I mean,
There no motions
actually,
made, so you
I
can
didn't know
make
if you
a
were
motion.
making a motion.
No, I'm asking if
So
somebody would like to make a
I
motion.
do not have the school calendar in front of me. I know that our next board meeting is December 17th.
14.
So when,
December 14th.
I'm sorry, I thought you said 17th.
I said 17th because that's the last day of school.
Okay,
We meet the 14th.
we meet the 14th. The last day of school is the 17th.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So I was just trying to,
No, that's fine. But no, I was not making a motion. I was asking if somebody would like to make a motion along those lines.
So what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Hooker, just to make sure I understand, I'm hearing you say you're looking for a motion for a resolution to continue a K6 mask requirement through the end of the day, December 17th.
Correct. Would anybody be interested?
I guess the question I have, and again, I mean, I'd like to just discuss it. So, I mean, if somebody can make a motion, but I'd really like to talk about it first.
Yeah.
So then when is the next board meeting?
December 14th.
No.
January 11th.
Oh, January 11th.
I mean, I won't be on the board, but my point is as follows. there will not be a board meeting between December 17th and January 11th. So you will have, I think what you're asking for is a mask mandate for K through 6, which is going to expire after our next board meeting, and then the board will not meet again until January 11th. And the only reason I'm saying this is the board has to consider at the next December meeting what to do over the holiday break and what to do basically
Well, I think
January
we'll
11th.
have some data, and we might change our mind on certain things, but I would think that if we give guardrails to that gentleman over there, he can put a mask mandate in if he sees the world changing rapidly.
And let me ask a different way. Why do we have to have a motion to continue the mandate? I mean, it doesn't expire today, does it?
Yeah, it does.
If you don't pass a resolution, the mask mandate would expire after this meeting.
Yes. Just like,
So
If you want to continue masking, you need a resolution for the grade levels you want it to continue for.
so I think I would tend to agree with you that we should at least advise our parents that up until the break, we would, if that's the way the board is going to vote, that we would be mask required. I just want to remind the board that even if we do that and it doesn't expire on December 14th, the board is going to have to think about it is going to expire on December 17th. So then it will automatically go mask optional from December 18th until January 10th. That was the point I was trying to make. So
No, that's very, very well said.
So what I'm hearing Dr. Hooker say is the motion you would make continues the mask mandate for K6, but ends it on the end of the day, December 18th.
They're 17th.
17th, sorry. That's what I'm hearing.
No motion has been made.
Right, I want to make sure I understood so that everybody could understand, because I know there are people who will listen to this meeting or watch this meeting.
So over the holiday break, the only question I have is for K through 6, are there activities over the holiday break for which the school would be open and, would otherwise be subject to a mask mandate for K through 6, but will not be subject to it as a result of this?
Yeah, I mean, between December 17th and January, when we return to school, there will be middle school and high school sporting events.
But that's just middle school and high school.
Yeah.
That's just, there's no...
But anybody could attend, right? So they would come indoors, for example, for a basketball game.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So, with all of my questions asked, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the mask mandate for K through 6 through the end of the day, or the end of the school day, on December 17th.
Is anybody like to second that motion?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lewis,
Aye.
Mrs. Singh,
Aye.
Mrs. Eichholz,
No.
Mrs. Johnston,
No?
Dr. Hooker.
Aye. I would like to now entertain somebody to make a motion that we talked about previously, that motion that you were going to make related to the guardrails.
Yeah, we did that.
I thought I already made that motion.
I don't think we voted on it,
Well,
did we?
I
Or did we?
thought we voted on...
Mick, did we already vote on that motion about the guardrails?
That was part of Mrs. Lewis's resolution, yes.
Okay, that's great. I'm sorry. I'm slow.
but I would like to point out that those same guardrails obviously will apply across the entire district. And right now, just for the record, in K through 6, which we just passed a mandate, they are well below the data for the guardrails in those grade levels in every factor. So I just want to make that point.
Yeah, and I would say that they're there because of the mask. That's
So, just so I hear every comment everybody's making, I'm just trying to make sure that we can reiterate, I think, some really important points that you've all made here. So, we've stated the rationale for this, and very clearly we're going to make, again, we're going to make masks optional grades 7 through 12, and for 7th graders, it's effective Monday, November 22nd. And then we're going to continue a mandatory mask requirement for students in grades K through 6 and for all staff and visitors, and then that will be lifted at the end of the day, Friday, December 17th.
Thank you for asking that question, because I guess my question for you is, as of the end of the day today, 7th graders do not have a mask. So actually, I think we need a motion that masks, okay, you can tell me we don't, I don't know. We don't, tomorrow, they can show up mask optional if we don't have a motion.
I think just, again, to be clear, because of the dates, because we're going to choose Monday, you should make a motion.
Yeah, so. So I actually need to modify that.
Can you just make a second,
No, just
make a
make
new
a
motion?
separate motion with
Okay.
the date.
Yeah.
So for grade 7, I would make a motion that we continue the mask mandate that's currently in place through the
Friday,
22nd.
no,
Friday
no,
through November
Friday.
19th.
what about the weekend?
End of the day, Friday, November 19th.
What about oh, there won't be any
Doesn't
weekend
matter.
activities. Through the end of the school day on November 19th. And that we clearly well, we don't have to say that. You're going to do a communication of when it becomes mask optional.
All right, so that's your motion. Any second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lewis,
Aye.
Mrs. Singh,
Aye.
Mrs. Eichholz,
Aye.
Mrs. Johnston,
Aye.
Dr. Hooker.
Aye.
Thank you all.
I want to just say that I'm really proud of this board. We've disagreed very hardly about a lot of topics, and I still think we are all Braves, and we can disagree and we can move on. And so I've been very pleased with that. I do want to congratulate the 3 new incoming board members, Mr. Nolan Marks, Mr. Craig Summerall, and Mr. Bear Tullis. I don't think they came tonight, did they? No, but I just want to congratulate them on the TV, I guess, on winning, and I wish them the absolute best working with these 2 fine ladies to my left, carrying forward the school district that is the best anywhere. And so that, if there any other business that anybody has for the board tonight, then would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Exclusive coverage on the Indian Hill Television Network has been a copyrighted presentation of the Indian Hill High School Video Department.